Good morning still, yes? Right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to Gabriel and everybody here at Arts for Los Angeles for having us be here. We are excited to have this conversation. My good friend Larry and I are going to be setting up the first part, but as Gabriel mentioned, really this is a conversation for you to dig into as well. So the first 15, 20 minutes will be us speaking up here, and then we're going to have some breakout sessions where we get to talk to you and hear some of your comments around 3 questions that we will be sharing out. But to kick us off, Larry and I are going to spend a little bit of time ground setting and introducing ourselves, giving a little bit of background as to how we met and also our cultural background a little bit. So my name is David Valdez. I am born and raised here in Los Angeles. I grew up, yes, thank you. Very, very proud to be that. I grew up as the youngest of 7 in a Mexican-American immigrant family. 5 of my brothers and sisters were born in Mexico. The other 2, my sister and I, were born here in the United States. I attended all public schools, and in fact, all mascots were Bulldogs. So Fort Boulevard Elementary, Griffith Junior High at that time, it's now middle school, and Garfield High School. I was always interested in the arts and always participating in whatever way I could. However, as a young person, at the time that I was growing up, and I'm old enough to barely remember the 1984 Olympics taking place because my older siblings were big fanatics of it at that time. When I grew up, although I was interested in the arts, I didn't know that you could have a career in the arts. So it was, in my mindset, very much a hobby, something that I was practicing on the side, but not something that I could pursue as a career. I went to college on the East Coast and was, flopping around in different majors as you do the first couple of years. And one of the things that I was spending most of my time doing was performing and taking classes and courses in theater studies. I ended up switching majors to the thing that I was passionate about and got a theater studies degree, went and got a master's in fine arts degree from the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. Even then, I didn't think that I could have a career in the arts, even though I was being trained as a classically trained actor for the stage. And shortly after completing my master's program in San Francisco, I moved back to Los Angeles for 2 reasons. Number one is, well, I guess I'm going to figure out, my mind really likes to figure out how to solve these puzzles, how to break into the entertainment industry. So I moved back to Los Angeles. The first reason was because my family is here, and I'm very much connected to my family. And the second reason was because Hollywood is the backdrop of Los Angeles. So I moved back to LA and started my first career at NBC Universal, which is where I am now. I was a studio tour guide on the world-famous studio tour, giving tours in English and Spanish. Did that for about 5 years, and most of the tours I gave were actually in Spanish because Los Angeles is that city where there's a hunger and an appetite and a need to serve all communities, but especially the Spanish-speaking community. I did that for 5 years, and then I left to go work at nonprofits where I was working in the social justice, community organizing space, working on public policy, trying to change and dismantle the school to prison pipeline, working with organizations that being funded by like the California Endowment, statewide coalitions like the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color. Love that work, and then remained very inspired. During that time, I got appointed by Supervisor Hilda Solis, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as one of the LA County Arts Commissioners, and served on that board for 3 years. You saw Kristen Sakota, who now heads the Department of Culture at that time. I saw her transition into that leadership position during my time there. And then went back to NBC Universal in 2016, had a different role, first with the studio tour, and now serving on the corporate diversity team, where I help to support all of the company's corporate diversity, equity, and inclusive initiatives. So that's a big introduction to me, but it leads to how I met Larry LeBeau, and I'm going to pass it over to him so you can share his background.
Well, I think David got to wish you good morning, and I think it's now the afternoon, right? So I get to wish you a good afternoon. I'm Larry LeBeau. I'm the executive director and founder at New Filmmakers LA. And I want to give a shout out just to a couple of our partners who are in the room, Hollywood Fringe Festival, IDA, and also one of our alumni filmmakers who's intersectional in the space of arts, which is Dante back there, who founded the California LGBTQ+ Arts Alliance. So amazing to see so many people in the room who we have relationships and have collaborated with over the years. My journey is similar to David's in that I also didn't think that I could have a career from the arts, except I did not grow up in LA. I grew up just south of Detroit in Michigan, so no one in my family still to this day has anything related to a creative career or a career in the arts. And to this day, they still don't understand what I do. And they still tell me, when are you gonna get a real job? So I knew from a very young age that I loved film, I loved TV, I loved music, I loved theater, I loved performance. And I also knew that in order to pursue those things, I needed to get out of Michigan. So I convinced my mother at 15 to move me into homeschooling so I could try to graduate my 11th and 12th grade year in 6 months, which I managed to do. I got emancipated to New York City. I worked for 2 years, thank God, earning money as an actor. So I was doing print and voiceovers and commercials and really anything I could do to pay my New York City bills. And at 18, I moved to Los Angeles. I transitioned into work as a producer. So I was actually a couple short form series for NBC, Control, and Fact Checkers Unit, a project with Anthony Anderson for Comedy Central. And at 20, I was trying to find an organization in LA that felt like some of the organizations that I had experienced in New York. And at Anthology Film Archives in New York, there is a program called Filmmakers, which is a weekly screening series. I really couldn't find anything in LA that felt like a festival on a regular basis, something that didn't just happen once a year, but was consistently available for the community throughout the year. So at 20, co-founded that. I will let you do the math, but we celebrated 17 years of the organization in July. It's been a labor of love and something that everybody who works on the program, whether it's someone who's contributing as a sponsor or a volunteer or a staff member, it really is a labor of love for everybody. And I'm sure that's the case with so many people here that have nonprofits or work at nonprofits. And that's me. I'll stop there.
Let's give it up for the panelists here. Thank you both for those amazing introductions. As you all heard, we have some amazing experience here, right? What better folks to talk about creative talents, right? We do want to move along a little bit, right? And maybe talk a little bit about how you engage elected officials, right? The importance of that, and attending community events. If you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, in the couple of different roles that I mentioned, particularly when I was an arts commissioner, you get invited to a lot of events. And I love working in a room, I love networking, I love meeting folks and individuals and connecting with people. And I thought I was pretty good at it until I met Larry. Larry was like lapping me around the rooms because as much energy as I have, he probably has twice as much as I did. And so we connected right away because, like-minded individuals, but we were really about connecting people, not just with our organizations, but making sure that we were trying to build great dishes where we could. So one of the first encounters that we had was when I was serving as the arts commissioner. You get invited to these events, and I thought it was so critical that if I said I was going to attend something, that I attended something. So my first notification to myself was, especially here in LA, because I know the culture can be anti-this. If you say yes, commit to it, because it's an incredibly important asset to be able to meet people, particularly in person.
And I'll just chime in and I'll say the importance of finding that person who's really going to champion you and really show up for you. At the time that we sort of got connected with Supervisor Solis's office, there were like 3 appointed arts commissioners, and the supervisor connected us to all of those arts commissioners. And no problem, but David really was the only one who actually got back to us and really showed up and came out to events to really see what the organization was doing and experience it firsthand. And there was no tangible, hey, this is what the supervisor's office or me in my corporate role are going to be able to do to help you, but let's build this relationship and stay in touch. And that continued really for many, many years before what we will talk about later really started in spiked.
Thank you for that. later has arrived. So we're ready to hop into maybe talking a little bit about your partnership, right? Talking about how do you leverage, right, partnerships to make change, right? How do you leverage partnership to build capacity and maintain DEI ethos?
I'll jump right in here. I think Larry mentioned being a champion for each other, and I think the true word of being a champion is when you talk about that person or that group when they're not in the room, right? So I have an opportunity in my role, because I work with all the various departments within NBC Universal, the film group, the television group, and streaming services, and our ad sales, and theme park divisions. So many different businesses who are sometimes looking for a community partner or an agency where they can partner with and do different creative projects. And the reason I bring up Larry so much in some of those meetings is because as much as I commit and say yes to doing something, I know that when Larry raises his hand on behalf of New Filmmakers Los Angeles, they are going to follow through on that commitment as well, right? And so I'm able to do that with confidence because I know that Larry's organization will also follow through.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, like, I mentioned this earlier, but it's really looking for those people who you know are also going to do the work and want to do the work, right? So our partnership is not just a financial exchange where NBC is supporting the organization. Our partnership is David showing up and giving hours and hours of his time every single month to engage the people that we support through our program. So I'll talk a little bit about what we built together. So New Filmmakers has had a high school student mentorship program for students who want to get and break into the entertainment industry in LA. It is exclusively restricted to high school students in LA County, and primarily most of our students are LAUSD high school students, though they can come from any school in the county. And we had been doing that program for about 10 years as really a below-the-line production program where the students who would come through were really learning about sound, they were learning about camera, they were learning about being an assistant director. And David, through a division called NBCU Academy, you touched on all the different divisions that you get to sort of have an ear to the ground to and work with. David said, let's try to do this on the lot monthly. So basically 12 times a year. We've now been doing that together for 2 years, bringing 12 high school students every single month onto the NBC lot. That takes somebody like David, and just tooting your horn, I love you, but it really takes somebody like David. You find a lot of people want to find a reason to say no, and there's reasons for that. I think people are afraid, especially in larger corporations, I don't want to be responsible if something goes wrong, I don't want the liability, I am overwhelmed already with my bandwidth at work, I don't need another monthly responsibility that I have to book speakers for, book out space, communicate to security to get people on the lot. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to what you do. And so I think you're really looking for the people who want to build a relationship and in a multi-dimensional way, and not just the money is great. Like, we need the money in order to operate as an organization. We all know that. But like having that partner who really gets what you're doing, and also who sees it as a two-way relationship, right? Like, David's doing a lot of work on the lot, bringing in speakers, booking the space, being the champion of the program each time it happens. But I think, NBC could look at it at the same time as New Filmmakers are bringing in students from 140 schools in LA County a year. They're doing that outreach, they're doing the recruitment, they're capturing all the data from the students, they're doing report backs on the students' experience with the program. So I feel like it really has been a two-way relationship, and we've been able to collaborate in a lot of other ways through NBC Launch, which we're also with, that David also works with. We were able to do a writer's workshop on the lot, with another nonprofit organization called In the Cut 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's been a great evolution.
And I'll quickly add, look, I spent about 15 years trying to get to the position that I'm in now, and I'm very grateful to be in this spot. And I say that I very selfishly now work to try to remove those barriers so that our next generation can have an easier time getting in. And I create, particularly for the high school students, I try to create programs that I wish I had. when I was coming up. And when I look at it from that lens, I really sort of try to create an experience for them that gets them excited to be in this business and in this field, and also introduce them to the many, many careers that exist under the media entertainment, world. Yes, there's a lot of creative positions, but there's a lot of traditional roles as well, and we need to fill all of those positions. And so, giving them access and opening up the doors to the lot so that they can see that firsthand, and more importantly, see that they belong there in the future is probably the greatest gift that I have to be able to show.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Larry. Hearing just so much love and care and commitment, right? Sounds like a relationship. And obviously, in a bigger sense, you're paving that path, paving the job pathway, right, for the next generation of artists that are coming up, which is so special. Something that we here at March for Ling also are big fans of both of you as well. And we want to have like a little moment, if you can, to dive a little deeper, right? Maybe sharing, you all share a lot, right? A lot of amazing stuff, and maybe sharing a little bit more of some best practices, right? When you're in partnership, especially when times are a little tougher, right? That we can share with our amazing attendants here.
I mean, I'll share that, particularly in the art space, there's a lot going on in Los Angeles, and I would say that you really don't need to reinvent anything because it already exists. So finding ways that you can collaborate or partner or even join on board with something that's already in existence. So from an NBC Universal perspective, I'm very nosy because I go around to the different departments and try to figure out what's going on. 2026, although 2028 is a pivotal year because of the Olympic and the Paralympics. But 2026, NBC Universal is going to be hosting 3 major sporting events, right? The Super Bowl, which is going to be at SoFi Stadium, the World Cup, and then NBA is also going to be, streamed on some of our services. So that's a marquee year. I raise my hand and figure out, well, how can we bring the arts community to be a part of those big events, right? In a way that the sports organization that we have may not always be thinking about it, right? So I think about the high school students that we bring to the lot. How can we look to maybe find some roles, even if they're just early career entry position, PA roles, for some of those sporting events that are going to take place here. So that's the first one, right? Is see what's already in existence so that you can add and amplify some of those efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, for us, I think it's looking for those collaborators, and I'll just give a reference to a couple people who are at the road that are not big corporations, right? So I bring up Hollywood Fringe again because, you all reached out this year. There's no financial component involved to our partnership, but we were able to do a lot of really beautiful things together, some panels, some mixers, inviting Hollywood Fringe out to our events, inviting our audience out to Hollywood Fringe. Dwayne Gathers, who we met 10 years ago when New Filmmakers had an article in the LA Times and reached out. Now, you just kind of can sense, I think that most of you would agree, you can kind of sense those people who have an openness to an evolving collaboration. It's not just like this one-on exchange. And I think just looking for people who want to find a way to support and collaborate versus thinking when you go to a funder or an organization that if one person doesn't get it, then that's it. There's no other option.
Give it up for that. I think that's all.